and welcome to BQ Prime. A very good afternoon to all the viewers. I am Hiral Dadia. Clearly, a big news coming in terms of the FMCG pack. You have ITC that is in focus, where the board has gone ahead and approved the demerger of the hotel business. On the back of this announcement, the stock did drop to the tune of almost 3.5 to 4% in trade as we speak. Now, what does this actually mean in terms of the company? Sajid is joining by firstly with more details to give us a little more in terms of what the company has come out with. Sajid, overall, this was something which was pretty much on the cards for the last couple of years. People have been talking about ITC and the demerger. Now that it has been announced, what are the modalities so far that have been, that the company has notified?
So, the street was expecting a clean demerger of the hotels business. What has happened is that ITC has announced a restructuring of the business in such a way that it continues to hold 40% in the hotels business or the hospitality business, and remaining 60% would be distributed proportionately to the shareholders of ITC. ITC does not have an identifiable promoter as such, except for the largest shareholder, which is there, which is a British American Tobacco, which hold around 20-25% stake in the company, but it doesn't, it's not classified as promoter there. So what is going to happen is ITC is going to create a wholly owned subsidiary, which is called ITC Hotels Limited, and then it's going to capitalize the subsidiary with 100 crores of rupees 1 face value share each, and thereafter there will be a restructuring scheme of arrangement which will allow them to give shares to the 60% of the company to the 100% shareholders of ITC, which basically means that you may end up getting 6 shares for every 10 shares of ITC you hold going forward, and that's how the value unlocking will happen. We saw the ITC stock correcting, and that could be primarily because ITC planned to retain 40% in the company, as a result of which there will be capital issues which will be there because they will be dependent on ITC in case of future growth and other stuff. Remember, this ITC is a cash cow, and today hotels is a division of ITC, and so the money which is being used can easily be used by ITC hotels. Tomorrow it will be a dependence on ITC for future capital requirement, and that's what maybe the street is worried about.
Right. And overall, thanks, Sajid, for getting us, that breakup so far. And clearly, if you see in terms of the hotel business as a whole as well, it's almost around 3.5% of the overall revenues that we've seen so far. Now, how much value unlocking that they will be able to create out of this is what we need to wait and watch. But let's welcome in our guest as well, who's joining in. Sudip Bandyopadhyay joins us. Sudip, good afternoon. My first question coming to you is your initial comments with regards to where the demerger that has been now finally announced, and they've said that ITC, which is the parent, will go ahead and hold 40% stake in the demerged entity, which is the hotel business.
First thing I will say, it's a step in the right direction. I think market and the shareholders have been talking about restructuring and value unlocking by segregating the businesses, the multiple businesses. I think this has been there for quite some time, and finally it's started. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Now, whether this 40-60 is the right way to do and all that, I think there's a secondary question. First thing, they've taken the first step towards getting these businesses and business lines separated. Of course, the timing is extremely important, and I think this is the perfect time for doing what they're trying to do for the hotels business. Look, all the hotel companies which are listed are doing very well, whether it's Indian hotels or East India hotels or chalet hotels. In fact, hotels world over are doing good. The occupancy rates are great. ARR is gone up significantly, and I think from here on also there may be some scope for ARRs improving further. So I think this is a perfect time for the hotel business to try to stand on its own feet. If you all will remember, ITC Hotels used to be an independent company. It got listed, and eventually it was merged a few years back, many years back. And now this is being demerged through a structure. ITC will continue to hold 40%. That's a bit of a challenge vis-a-vis what the market was thinking. Basically, what will happen is let's say BAT, British American Tobacco, which holds about 30% in ITC, will end up holding about 18% of the hotels business. And we can all do the numbers. If somebody is holding 30%, they will hold 18%. So similarly, somebody holding 10% will end up holding 6%. So that's how the maths will work. If you look at it from ITC's point of view, you also mentioned the hotels business was contributing about 3.5% of its EBIT and revenue, was taking about 20% of the overall capex. So it was a drag in that sense on the consolidated balance sheets, return on equity, and once it gets segregated, I think the standalone ITC, without the hotels business, the ROE will improve significantly. Markets will definitely appreciate. Of course, right now what we are seeing in the market is market had already run up in anticipation of this announcement. So some amount of profit booking and some amount of disappointment, I would say, because of the 40-60 structure, which we are getting seeing getting played out.
Sudeep, if you look at the holding structure post the demerger, as and when it happens, you mentioned that BAT may be holding nearly 18 odd percent, but it's likely, right, that they may sell off that 18% because that's not going to be core to the business or strategy.
Well, Sajid, I think theoretically you're absolutely right. British American Tobacco, I don't think has any interest in hotels business anywhere in the world. So logically, they will want to sell at some point of time. It will be a value unlocking for them. But when it will happen, whether it will happen in few years or whether it will happen immediately, one doesn't know. It's very premature to comment on that at this stage. But yes, what you say remains a distinct possibility.
And also the fact that if you look at the shareholding as a whole, BAT will be voting along with ITC. So in effect, both of them together will be owning nearly 58% of the new demerged entity and having control on the decisions of this company. So from a capital efficiency and requirement point of view, they would be dependent on these two entities going forward, and that's what I think the shareholders are a little concerned about, that it's not a capital efficient and it's not a clean demerger or an independent company that's been created here.
I won't go there, Sajid. I think look at Indian hotels now. Tata Sons and other entities of the group hold a significant percentage there. Now I don't think that leads to some inefficiency or any challenge. When there is a capital raise, if there is an anchor, if there is a promoter, so I think it's a good thing. So basically what will happen is the listed ITC hotels will have ITC Limited as a promoter. Now that's not a bad thing to happen. Yes, the free access to funds which it had being a division of ITC Limited will not be there. But it's a good thing. There are hotel companies which are doing very well. And why not ITC hotels? They have great properties. So I'm sure they should also start performing. And on a standalone basis, they will stand on their own feet, have their own economics, have their own balance sheet. And, hotels are attracting what? Between 15 and 20 P multiple. So it will attract similar P multiple based on its performance. And ITC, which is rest of the ITC, which is predominantly an FMCG business, will attract probably a much higher multiple X of hotels.
Right. Sudeep, another question that comes to my mind right now is, if you're talking about ITC holding a 40% in the demerged hotel business, do you think there is a possibility this has been done to avoid a takeover of the management, which you could say in terms of a hostile takeover? Because we're talking of BAT and SUTI, which over time may sell out. LIC, about 10% probably will be maintained, and the own stake of 40% would actually then avoid a management takeover, right? So is that a possibility, you think, with a rationale?
Yes, to an extent, what you say is right. But that applies to any company where the promoter holds 40-50%. Promoter holding 40% in a company is not bad. Now, look at from a practical point of view. Today, the shareholders were expecting that 100% hotels will be desubsidized and the entire 100% shareholding will come to the existing shareholders of ITC Limited. Now, instead of that, what they are doing is 40% is retained with ITC Limited and 60% will be distributed. Now, yeah, from a shareholder point of view, if I look at it from an ITC Limited shareholder now and today, I think it's a bit of a disappointment. But if I look at it from an ITC Hotels point of view, the way the structure is going to be, I think it's good to have a promoter. As I mentioned, East India Hotels has the Oberois and Reliance as the promoter group at this stage. Indian Hotels have Tata's as the promoter. So why not ITC Hotels have ITC Limited as a promoter? There's no harm. That's a structure, standard structure everywhere and with most corporates in India. See, in case of ITC, it is unique. There is no promoter. But why do ITC Hotels need to follow that structure?
Right. And Sudip, another question I have is when you're talking about 60% of the hotels business to be held by minority, does this also entail a holding company discount that will prevail? And that's one of the reasons why we are seeing a sell-off today.
Not really, Hiral. I think, most companies in India, large companies, have some investment or the other. So that by itself doesn't make them a holding company. Holding company typically, or the question of holding company discount comes when some company is only holding investments in operating companies and they themselves are not generally doing much business. Let's say take the case of Tata Sons or all the other group holding companies. ITC Limited, even after this demerger, doesn't become a holding company. It's very, very much an operating company with multiple businesses which are very immensely profitable.
Sudip, if you look at the financials of ITC Hotels, it had an EBIT of around 550 odd crores for FY23, which if you look at PAT based on the normal taxation that we take, it's around 450 odd crores, which is there and it will grow at 50 to 20% in next financial year. So we are looking at with 100 crore equity which they have. We're looking at what nearly 100 rupees or so on a demerged basis, the price of ITC Hotels. If I assume 20 times multiple which you spoke about.
Yeah, normally if you look at the other hotels, let's say Indian Hotel, East India Hotel, the multiples they are quoting, my guess is initially the multiple will be slightly lower than Indian Hotels, and that's where it will start. And eventually, based on performance and how the future, and how in future they move, the valuation will come, like any other stock in the market. At this stage, I think to derive at an implied value of ITC Hotels once it gets listed, I think it's a little difficult, Sajid. I don't know the figures. I don't know the specifics at this stage. So very difficult for me to comment.
Mm-hmm. No, because I was looking at capital of a share of 100 crores, which is they've mentioned in the release of 1 rupee face value, and we are looking at profits coming to the range of 450 odd crores for FY24. So even if you assume a 15 times, which is a lower end as compared to an Indian hotel, the price range of lower and upper end would be what, 70 to 100 rupees per share for a shareholder?
Possible. I haven't done those calculations, but definitely possible. Let's see how the structure eventually evolves, Sajid, because the properties which are operated by ITC Hotels today, there are probably 3-4 classes of properties, but one and the flagship hotels, let's take Moria, Sheraton, let us take the Bangalore property, and a lot of these properties are owned by ITC Limited. So how that moves, how the valuation of those properties are done when they are moved, we have to see that. I'm not sure how this entire structure will work out at this stage. One has to see how things are moving.
Even if you look at the assets and liability of this company, which they give as part of the segmental revenue, they have what, 7,900 crores in assets and 900 odd crores in liabilities, so net worth of 7,000 crores. So even there, the pricing per share, if you want to put it on book, comes to around 70 odd rupees, which is there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with your logic there, but let's see, because the valuation must be getting carried at cost for most of these things, because companies normally don't revalue their investments on a piecemeal basis. But when you are transferring to a new entity, the need for valuing those properties may come. Let's say the flagship Delhi hotel that's built in 70s, and continuous additions have happened, and the valuation of that in ITC's books will be minuscule compared to what it is in the market today. So when you're moving to a new entity with different shareholding structure, I suppose the need for valuation will come, and that will probably give different figures once it's done.
Right. So, Sudeep, at current levels, the way ITC has moved up, what would you advise investors to do who are looking to buy ITC? Is it a good time to look at ITC, taking into consideration the demerged value unlocking that they would benefit from, or would you advise an investor to wait?
No, I think if an investor is looking at a long term, I think ITC definitely, if you do a peer comparison, it is definitely attractive. Do a comparison with HUL, do a comparison with Nestle, do a comparison with any other listed FMCG company. ITC quotes at a much lower PE multiple. ITC is quoting at 24, 25, and others quote above 50. So there's a huge valuation gap between ITC and other FMCG companies. Now, with hotels moving out of ITC Limited, the standalone ITC Limited will have a much better return on equity, and all other ratios, all other parameters will improve significantly, because 20% of the capex was going for ITC hotels. So that will stop, because that's in a different company. Under the circumstances, I think there will be significant opportunity for re-rating of standalone ITC Limited and valuation pick up. So if that happens, and when that happens, I think there will be significant opportunity for shareholders of ITC Limited, apart from this value unlocking, which is going to happen now in maybe a few months.
Thank you, Sudeep, so much for getting us those views and details. Really helpful, and good for the investors as well. Stay safe and speak to you soon again. But clearly, at least at the face of it, in terms of right now, if you see ITC is down almost around 4% in trade. It's hit a 52-week high of 499.6, currently trading at levels of around 470. So, Sajid, clearly, if you see from what Sudeep was mentioning and from your analysis that you've done so far,
Yeah.
Clearly, what are the key takeaways that you would actually give investors?
Couple of things. One, it's a 60-40 thing, means the investors is going to have a 60% stake in ITC, going ITC hotels going forward. ITC as a company and BAT together will have roughly around 58% stake, which basically means it will still be controlling the hotel
business.
subsidiary, and which also means that for any future capital infusement, ITC will have to be be part of that capital raising, whether it's rights issue or any other issue, unless ITC says tomorrow that I'm going to strategically sell off this entire thing and back joins, and so it becomes a totally different entity, but which we don't know at this point in time whether it's going to be there. But it's my sense is that they've kept 40% with them so that they can unlock some of the value and get that value back into ITC company, which is there. But ITC is fully owned by shareholders, so they should have given entire thing to the shareholders, and rather than keeping it with that. So the street is a little disappointed and divided on this 40-60 ratio which has come in. They were expecting a clean demerger. It's not going to be clean, it seems, as
and from a valuation perspective, how are you looking at the demerged entity if you have to compare it to the likes of an Indian hotel or any of the listed hotel companies?
So, again, like Sudeep was mentioning, it can get a multiple between 15 to 20 times earnings, which is there. But we need to see whether what's the kind of demerger is going to happen. My guess is that which analysts will start penciling in their thoughts of how the entire book is going to be done, because they have assets of nearly 7,900 odd crores, and liabilities are much lower at 900 crores. And ITC itself is a cash-rich company, so liabilities on this hotel side is very less. So the final contours will depend upon what kind of asset transfer happens to the new wholly owned subsidiary, and how much of that buffer of cash is also moves on to the new subsidiary as a whole. So all those details will depend.
Right, I think that's what we need to wait and watch. And the scheme will be placed before the board for its approval on the 14th of August. And to formalize the spin-off, the company, will be coming ahead and approving all the details by then as well. So I think that's the time we will be waiting out for. Thank you, Sajid, so much for getting us all the details and giving us all this information. So that's with regards to ITC. The stock has closed lower. And as Sajid was mentioning, there is the view in terms of investors seems to be slightly divided, and slightly amount of disappointment does come in there, but further modalities is something that we need to wait and watch. That's all that we have on this segment, which is a special one with regards to the demerger that has been announced by ITC. Thanks for watching, and lots more lined up on BQ Prime. Please stay tuned.